Russia's losses in the Ukraine war, its war crimes, and questionable tactics are widely known. However, Putin's perspective on the conflict is often overlooked. In February 2022, the conflict escalated into a full-scale war, and Russia referred to it as a special military operation. Putin himself stated on TV that it was not a war but a special operation. The control of the narrative is as important in the conflict as the armed conflict itself, with both sides vying for control. At the start of the war, Putin attributed it to the actions of irresponsible Western politicians, and claimed that his invasion was for Russia's security. He has always maintained that this is a proxy conflict with the West in the US, who he sees as the main instigator. The leaked phone conversation between US officials regarding the selection of the next Ukrainian leader appeared to support Putin's claims. The conversation made it seem like the US was pulling the strings in Ukraine. For many years, the US has influenced global politics by replacing democratically elected leaders with tyrants. Putin saw an opportunity in Nuland's involvement, using it as evidence of US interference in foreign affairs, supported by a history of US meddling. Nuland declined to comment on what she referred to as private diplomatic conversations. To this day, the extent of US power in Ukraine remains a topic of debate, with experts like economist Jeffrey Sachs and political scientist John Mearsheimer viewing it as a proxy war. This is a complex issue that we cannot comment on. However, we will mention that Putin quickly took advantage of the phone call, which may have been leaked by Russia. A Russian newspaper boasted that Nuland not only swears, but also gives detailed instructions for Kyiv's maiden puppets to follow. The White House acknowledged the validity of the call but called it a new low in Russian tactics. If the Russians were indeed behind the leak, it was certainly a clever move. Although we don't know the full extent of US control in Ukrainian politics, the call certainly provided Putin with a lot of ammunition. He repeatedly told Russian citizens that the US was trying to harm their country, and most of the people believed him. If the situation was reversed, and a high-ranking Russian official was caught discussing the installation of an anti-American president, the US media would likely have a field day and many people would have been suspicious. It's understandable why the Russian people did not trust the US. President Putin has expressed his suspicion towards the US and NATO for years. He has accused them of cynical deception and lies, and of using pressure and blackmail. He claims that the US and its allies are arrogant in their interference in other countries' domestic and foreign affairs, believing they have an absolute superiority among all nations. Putin also believes that Russia was exploited during its most vulnerable moment after the fall of the Soviet Union. He called the US and its allies a bunch of con artists, and the US itself an empire of lies. He stated that those who do not comply with the US will face the squeeze. Despite this, Putin claimed Russia was willing to talk with the US and its allies. However, he now claims the US is trying to finish off, and utterly destroy, Russia. Putin's main point is that Russia is innocent and being bullied by the superpower. He issued a warning that any potential aggressor will face defeat and ominous consequences, referencing nuclear weapons. Putin stated that expanding NATO toward the east is unacceptable and a matter of life and death for Russia. He likely played on the emotions of the Russian people, who may have agreed with him and supported his views, as evidenced by his rise in popularity ratings. The Donbass people had put their trust in Russia for help after many were killed by Ukrainian forces in what was described as a genocide. The speaker accused Ukraine of being dominated by neo-Nazis and even claimed that the right wing in Ukraine sought to acquire nuclear weapons. However, these claims were disputed by others who knew the truth. In March, Russia passed a strict press law that allowed journalists writing false or deceptive content about the Ukraine situation to be imprisoned for 15 years. As a result, many international news organizations stopped reporting in Russia. The Russian government also blocked websites and silenced those who disagreed with Putin's narrative. Critics of Putin have faced harsh consequences, including imprisonment, while Western media and journalists have faced less restrictions. Putin's paranoia and fear of dissent have led him to make false claims and silence those who contradict him. The power lies with the people, but Putin's hold on power is weakening as his lies are exposed. In the 1930s and 1940s, a group was known for advocating the purification of society to make it stronger. Putin was incorrect in his assumption that the protests in St. Petersburg and Moscow against his special operation would not occur, leading to the arrest of many peaceful protesters. Putin later deemed these protesters as needing purification, including the mothers of soldiers who died in the war in Ukraine. Putin has adopted a totalitarian approach, but he refers to his critics as infected with fake news from the West. The reality is that tyrants learn their skills through experience, not in a college class. The war has led to more protests, and Putin initially spoke about it as a quick operation, but it has turned into a long and expensive war. Putin has not changed his stance on the matter, seeing it as a US-led proxy war against Russia, and has even compared the West to Nazis. Despite this, Putin's foreign minister has expressed hope for a compromise. Putin himself has acknowledged the harm caused by the sanctions and the information war led by the West, which controls most of the tech, but he continues to see the US's goal as the destruction of Russia.